Okay, Ayelet, tell me how you know Sarah and what work you guys have done together.
So I'm a lawyer. I'm a criminal lawyer, and ever since October 7th, I've been researching and advocating for the victims of sexual assaults on the terror attack and in captive. That's how I connected to Sarah, who took upon herself the mission of bringing the story and the voices and the evidence of the victims of the attack, specifically in the gender-based violence parts of what happened. And she did all the coordinating and the meetings in Congress and Senate, State Department, the White House, and all the different stakeholders and decision makers in U.S. Government, so they are briefed and they know what the evidential status is, and to give them as much information to you know design policy and help us release the hostages and advocate for Israel and the victims of the terror attack.
So you're based in Israel, and Sarah helped facilitate bringing you from Israel here to the United States to meet with our lawmakers here on Capitol Hill and influence policy. What
Yes.
can you tell me about Sarah as a person? You guys, worked together, for years. So
Oh no, not for years. I met her around the terror attack of October 7th, and the work I've been doing in relation to that. And I'll say also that Sarah told me that she joined the team of the embassy shortly after the October 7th attack because of her sense of mission, and she felt the rise of the anti-Semitism around her raising its ugly head, and she decided that this is her role in this catastrophe and this chaos that happened to us. And she used her professionalism, her expertise and connections to do to advocate for this, not in violence and not in protests and loud noises, but in diplomacy, with love, with respect, with belief in in the mission and its purpose. And in that name, she also got murdered. Her and her fiance, Yaron, were murdered by this rise of anti-Semitism. And it's devastating, and it's a horrific um, way to end such a beautiful life. Such a young, she was a beautiful soul. She was, she was enlightened. She's that kind of person. And
how did it feel when you got the news that Sarah became a victim to the anti Semitism that she fought so hard against here in the States?
it was devastating to get the news in general, to understand that Jewish people, that there was shooting into a crowd where Jewish people were coming out of an event of peace and solidarity. And then, as if the heart can't break enough, then another, you know, uh, gut-wrenching feeling when I understood it is Sarah, peace-loving Sarah, dedicated, devoted Sarah. And it's the irony. It's just unbearable. This person who dedicated her life to combat anti-Semitism was killed by a bigot anti-Semite, murdered. She was not just killed, she was murdered purposely. She was chosen I mean, there was a crowd. He came to kill Jewish people. That was his aim. And, this short life has just ended so tragically. It's horrible. But I have to say, it's not a sporadic act. It's not a sporadic murder. It's one, it's a peak in a very quickly escalating reality and where very violent acts of anti-Semitism are targeted at Jews and Jewish crowds all over the world, in Australia and Canada and the US. And the result is two young, loving people murdered in the middle of the capital of the United States. And it's just, I hope the only thing that may rise from this terror attack is that it will be a wake-up call for government, for organizations, for universities in the US and around the world that, in the name of politically correct, in the name of balancing and the right to protest and the right of freedom of speech, not all is allowed. And lines need to be drawn on what is legitimate and not legitimate, and to target people because of their religion, because of government's policies that they have nothing to do with. I mean, Sarah wasn't even Israeli. Her fiance was, but she wasn't even Israeli. That is not legitimate. And I have to want to add on to that something. Again, this is part of a series of a wave of ugly acts of anti-Semitism. Where else in the world or in history, except the Holocaust, a group of nationality or religion have to hide their identity, their kippah, their Magen David? They can't speak their, we are recommended not to speak Hebrew in public places, so we won't become a target. How is that normalized? How is that okay? How is that not setting us back to the 1930s, 1940s in Europe? And unfortunately, it's the new normal. It's the new politically correct.
I've got a twofold question next. What did Sarah tell you? What conversations did you have with her about rising anti-Semitism in the United States? And then what is your take? What did you witness, or what were your experiences from your conversations over here with lawmakers as well? Your own point of view.
So Sarah told me that she, for the first time, felt around her that some kind of isolation, acts of hate. It was something, from my understanding, it was something new to her after October 7th. It's not something she felt like she experienced all her life. And that's why she, again, from my understanding, she decided this is what she wants to do. That's her role in history at this time and moment. And so that's, that's what I remember she talked about in relation to that. And I'll say that in regard to those briefings that Sarah coordinated for me, like I said, I'm a criminal lawyer. I have the very systematic way of presenting the evidence. And again, that's what I've been doing all this since the attack for over a year and a half, collecting indications and evidence of sexual assaults and gender-based violence in general. So once people, any kind of people, not only lawmakers, take the time to learn the facts, to look at the footage, to hear the testimonies, it's not something you can deny. It's not something you can deny. Then comes the good old politically correct and say, well, there's some that start saying, well, Israel also is committing these and those crimes. Like there's some kind of context, or it makes it okay to do these horrific things. And again, and maybe in relation to that, to your first question, I've been interviewing a lot today to bring the story of Sarah and Yaron And to make sure, to do anything in my power to make this, have a purpose, make this into a wake-up call. And I've been asked repeatedly, well, do you think this murder is connected to, the war in Gaza? And just asking that is is giving the murder a context, like it's legitimizing it. Like Sarah and Yaron are not that any murder is okay, but it's like Sarah or Yaron had any role in this and what's happening in Israel's government's policy. No, the person who shot them, the murderer, did not know what their thoughts are, where they're from. Nothing matters, only the thought that they're Jews. And that's what he came to do. And the ripple effect of this is that, from what I've read, there's a strong recommendation not to hold prayers in synagogues, not to get together for prayers in synagogues on Friday and Saturday, like customary in Jewish tradition. So he succeeded in what he came to do, to
Feel that fear.
to fear the horror. And what also is important for me to say, this is a war of religion, of extreme radical Islam. They're a tiny portion of Islam, but they're the one giving the tone. They're the one who are painting all the others as those and like that. And it's a threat to everybody.
Do you
Every
feel
week there's a terror attack in Europe and other places of the world.
Do you feel, did you feel like U.S. lawmakers, when you met with them, were acknowledging of rising anti-Semitism as being a problem? Did you feel like they were still on the fence of if this was a problem or not? What was your gauge meeting?
It's not even that it's not that I felt that they're on the fence. I felt that they're legitimizing it and saying, here in the US, freedom of speech is sacred, and I totally acknowledge that and respect that. But this is not freedom of speech. What we see happening in universities, in the streets of, American cities, is not freedom of speech, is not freedom of protest. It is plain old anti-Semitism and acts of violence and threats that, being legitimized, bring to this horrific, tragic results of the murder of two people in the middle of U.S. Capitol in Washington.
When you watch what's going on college campuses here in the United States and the protests, there's been a lot of discussion about this on both sides, because university presidents are trying to, balance freedom of speech and balance, all of these things. But it can be seen as creating an environment where it can make some of these anti-Semitism sentiments worse. Do you think that the response from U.S. universities, from U.S. lawmakers to these protests has created an environment where we now see the type of attack that we saw last night that took 2 lives?
Definitely, yes. Not enough is being done. It's being legitimized. It's being, and the violence is also, from what we see from here, from Israel, the violence is being also targeted at the university staff. I remember just a few months ago, they actually took hostages of the university staff as part of the protest. That's also okay. It's way, way, way beyond legitimate and okay. And someone needs to stop this, really to stop this madness, this craziness, which brought and led to this. And draw the lines again, draw what's not okay anymore. And one more thing, I can't have and speak about what's happening without also relating to the hostages that are still in Gaza for more than a year and a half. There are foreign citizens there. Some have dual citizens, but there's Tahi citizens, African citizens. This war is a war of religion, and it's not targeted only at Israelis or only as Jews and trying to frame it as, oh, it's Israel's problem, maybe a little bit, further to Jewish problem. It's not. It's not. And it's getting further and further. And like I said before, every week I think there's some kind of terror attack on, foreign, somewhere in the world, again, by extreme Islam or in the name of religion and of Islamic religion. It's never I mean, it is what it is. Let's call it by its name and take care of it. Trying to frame the problem as, it's Israel and Palestinian is just being blind.
Last question for you. The Trump administration is attempting to address the issue with withholding university fundings, using whatever tools that they think they have in their tool chest. I know it's going through the courts as to whether or not they can use those tools or not, but they are taking steps to try to address this problem. In your mind, is their approach adequate? Would you like to see them do more? What's your take on what's going on as far as the current administration trying to fight rising anti-Semitism in the United States?
I would expect more arrests, more indictments. I would expect declaration floor to floor from Congress, from Senate, from administration. This is not allowed. A quiet protest, even a loud protest, is allowed, but we will not allow any kind of violent calls to action. Saying from the river to the sea, that's violence, because first of all, if you ask the protesters what river, what sea, they wouldn't know, It's like the new cool thing to chant, but they don't understand the meaning that it means that there's no Israel from the river to the sea. So that is a violent call to action to eliminate Israel, for instance. And again, it became the new normal. It became the new cool, movement to be part of, with not fully understanding the consequences and the danger, as we saw tonight that my friend and colleague Sarah and her fiance Yaron were murdered outside the Jewish Museum. It's just it takes lives. It's not a cool, fun thing to be part of. It's dangerous to everybody.
Ayelet, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.